Thank you for the invitation to talk about GCN. And you've probably heard of GCN. It may have had a different name, but we keep reusing the acronym. But this is the latest incarnation of GCN, which we're calling the General Coordinates Network. GCN, so I'm Judith Racusin from NASA Goddard. Have been the PI leading the modernization effort of the GCN, but with recent retirement of Scott Barthelme, who's worked on this for 30 years, I'm now responsible for all of it. So if you complain, you'll probably, I'll be the one who reply to you. But we have a team now, it's not just Scott anymore, of other scientists and software developers, and we're trying to develop GCN from this thing that has been the backbone of many communities for the last 30 years into a modern system that is robust and reliable. And well, I'll tell you all about that. And our new website, gcn.nasa.gov. If you haven't been there, please take a visit. Does this work? No. Okay. So I can't really talk about GCN without starting with a little bit of a history lesson. So the previous incarnation, the Gamma Ray Coordinates Network, and how we got to where we are. So if you're not familiar, I think the history of GCN is actually fascinating. And GCN is one of probably the first of the astronomical streaming alert systems, although there have been many developed since. But GCN started out of really an opportunity born of hardware failure on board the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory. In 1992, about a year after launch, the onboard recorder failed. And what that meant is that they couldn't, as planned, store the data and then downlink it, at ground station passes as needed. So the only way to get the data down was to get it down in real time. And some intrepid young scientists, many of whom are retired now, at the time, like Scott Barthelme, decided that they could use this and develop a real-time streaming system. And with this newfangled internet thing, use this to distribute those alerts to the worldwide community. The first version of this was called BACADYNE, the BATSI Coordinates Distribution Network, and it was built to receive and distribute those alerts. This is a little bit about the timeline of the history. So in 1992, the tape failure, and by mid-93, they had the first version of GCN. Scott's told me some great stories where apparently it was a tape recorder and a telephone, and it worked terribly. But that was the very first version. But within a few months, the first robotic telescope, a system called GROXY, came online to follow up these BACADYNE alerts. And then they started using email, which was still pretty new. I mean, that's 93. It's about when my family got dial-up internet, I remember. So, they were doing really, stuff at the forefront. The next year, 94, they had socket alerts, which are still active, these computer-to-computer socket, and then pagers. And we were still using pagers even when I was a PhD student, not that long ago. And of course, that's evolved since then, and, text messages, email, push notifications, all these things. As GCN started adding new instruments, RxTE and Alexis, it became the Gamma Ray Burst Coordinates Network because, of course, Gamma Ray bursts were the primary source that were distributed. It's hard to figure out exactly when that changed to the Gamma Ray Coordinates Network, when the general Gamma Ray transients were expanded, SGRs, other kinds of events. And then in the mid-2010s is about when gravitational waves were added to the network, neutrinos, and it's evolved from there. We're now referring to the old system as GCN Classic, so I'll do that throughout the talk to differentiate the new GCN from GCN Classic. Sometimes we call it the legacy system. And we launched the new version of GCN, we call GCN Classic, which we distribute over Kafka, and I'll get into what all of that is in 2022. And starting this year in 2023, we have at least some alerts are distributed just through this new system, which we're now calling the General Coordinates Network, because we are hoping to expand not just in instruments, but also source classes that we distribute over GCN. GCN has enabled many seminal breakthroughs in astrophysics. We've heard, I think you all are familiar with this, and we've heard about some of these topics this morning, but connecting space and ground-based facilities has led to a lot of amazing discoveries over the years. There are two primary data products from GCN, GCN notices and GCN circulars. A lot of, especially the optical community, always refers to GCNs, and what they usually mean are circulars, but I think notices are going to become even more important because machine readability with new surveys and just the influx of transients is really important. So GCN notices are generally written by and for machines. There are some exceptions to that where there are instrument teams that have humans in the loop in generating these. They have a fixed predefined format. In at least in GCN Classic, the schema for each notice type was specific to each instrument, and we're trying to generalize that. And GCN circulars are generally written by and for humans, but there are some clever teams who have automated these. If you see that, the circular come out minutes after a burst, there's probably not a human in the loop. They have a free-form text with an established style, and they are citable, but not peer-reviewed. The scientific landscape has, of course, changed. We've also heard all about that this morning. It's not just GRBs anymore, but there's lots of exciting transients, and the intersection of them with whether it's gravitational waves or neutrinos. I can even update magnetar giant flares, since there was one last week, that another extragalactic one, which was some excitement, and there's been discussion of that over GCN. The technical landscape, of course, the internet has changed a lot in the last 30 years. There are internet standards these days to serialize, better ways to serialize astronomy data, whether that's VO event, as we just heard about, JSON, which is not really specific to astronomy, it's just a very generalized data format, Avro, et cetera. Encryption is important on the modern internet. And there are also industry-developed general time series databases and streaming frameworks, namely Apache Kafka, which was originally developed by LinkedIn and is used all over the internet. But it's largely with the Rubin Observatory and their development for the LSST survey that they are using Apache Kafka to distribute transient alerts as their primary data product. Many other experiments have followed suit, including ZTF, LIGO, Virgo, Kagra, and the new GCN. So the new GCN. So I mentioned GCN Classic. For GCN Classic, which is still operational, although the goal is to phase it out over the next few years, there are 3 different data formats distributed over 3 different protocols: VO event over the VO event transport protocol, a text over email, and a custom 160-byte binary over socket connection. What we launched in 2022 is GCN Classic over Kafka. So this allows you to receive any notice type in any of those formats, but over the Kafka streaming protocol with a few easy steps, which I'll walk through a little bit later. And I should also update this graphic because we are now actually have a couple notice types going over at GCN Kafka, where the input into the GCN system comes via Kafka and we distribute via Kafka. That is where we're heading into the future, is everything over Kafka. We're going to maintain email because people are used to that, but there's still Kafka under the hood that is enabling that. In case you have not updated to the new system, this is why you should, and these are some differences between GCN Classic and GCN Kafka. The biggest of which, certainly also for us, is self-service. Scott Barthelme worked for 30 years tirelessly, manually adding every new user and their site to the GCN system. That is just not how the internet works these days. And now I'm doing any of that maintenance. Mostly people are unsigning up for the old system and switching to the new one, which is easier than creating new notice sites. But you can now manage your own account and subscriptions yourself through the new system. Open standards, open source, all of the GCN code, and unless it's necessary for cloud security, is all open source on our GitHub organization. The new system is entirely running in the cloud in AWS, and it's using modern security standards. We have a new website. The old website was gcn.gsfc.nasa.gov, and it is still active, and certain things like notices are still being updated on it, but we're gradually moving over services to the new site. And we allow single sign-on. I'll come back to that later. And this is using a US web design system, which in theory, all federal agencies are supposed to use in the US, although it's rare to find these websites actually at NASA. And self-service alerts via email. So this is also possible in how a lot of users receive GCN notices. So as I said, you previously had to contact the GCN team. If you do want to turn off your old notice sites, you still do have to contact us. That's me, or you go through our contact form and I can take care of that for you. But you can sign up for all new notices in just a few easy steps via the website. GCN circulars. So this is our certainly most popular data product. There are to date 35,000 some circulars in the archive. And we have a new archive of them. The old archive was frozen, and there's a big note on that page saying that it's frozen. But the new circulars, we completely transitioned in April, just before the start of 04, to the new system. It doesn't depend at all on the old system. But you can manage your own email subscriptions. If you want to stop GCN circulars for a while, you can just log in and turn them off with a simple toggle. And you can also enroll yourself to receive them. If you do want to submit circulars, you have to go through a peer endorsement system. It's very simple, but and it's been working well so far. And you can submit circulars still via email, or you can use a web form, which we're adding lots of new features to. So what is staying the same? GCN Classic is not going away. We understand that the community, many both space-based and ground-based instruments distribute alerts to it still, and receive them and do their follow-up observations. And we want to make sure that any transition we make is gentle, and that we don't break everyone's pipelines, especially in the middle of 04. So we're not doing anything certainly until the end of 04. But we're maintaining the legacy delivery mechanisms. We do want to move, for instance, our VO event brokers from where they are to inside our AWS instance, which we will alert the community before we do that, because that's going to change some IP addresses and such, just to bring everything under one house. GCN circular submission and delivery via email. And in fact, you can still send a circular to the old email submission address, and it'll forward to the new system, although we do recommend you use the new system. The old website's still there, and archives and notices are still being updated. However, any new features and new notice types will only be via the new Kafka system. The people with the expertise in editing the old system have all retired. We're maintaining it, and we're doing bug fixes, but we really are doing focusing all new development on the new system. So I'm going to do a very quick tutorial of how you stream notices in Python. And by the way, this presentation is, as you may have seen me load, is up on GitHub. You can take a look at it and go through this at your own speed if you choose. So anyway, so you go to our website, which looks something like this, although it's a little bit of an old screenshot. You sign in or sign up. If you had a legacy GCN circular account, this is important. The first time you log in, click sign up, not sign in, retrieve password. This has been a common issue. It'll retrieve your settings as the previous GCN circular submitter and subscriber, but it'll allow you to set up credentials so you can log in the first time. You can log in with an email and password, or Google or Facebook, or if you have an NAS ID like I have, I can click that other button and use our NASA single sign-on system. You click next. It shows that you're signed in this case, okay. This one says Leo Singer. It jumps around as to who's logged in when we click these screenshots. And then you select your credentials. So if you're setting up, this is to set up a Kafka stream, a Kafka listener. These are typically used for pipelines. You can receive them on your laptop, but it's only going to run when you're actively running your code. But whatever you want to call it, you give it a name. I think there's only one option for a scope, and you say you're not a robot, and you create new credentials. Then you can go through and customize which alerts you'd like to receive in any of text, VO event, binary, or JSON, and you can select from any of these missions and then all the individual notice topics within that. And you have to set up a separate one of these for each format, but you can receive as many notices as you want to do that. And we've recently added a few notice types via JSON, including the IGWIN, the International Gravitational Wave Network, alerts, and a couple of new GCN JSON alerts, which I'll come back to. So for example, if you want LBC, you can select all of these notice types. You click generate code, and it gives you sample code in Python, Node.js, C, C++, or C#. And this is a starting point where you can essentially just copy this code or download it and run it, and you'll be able to listen to GCN notices, and you can customize it as you wish. We have additional sample code that allows you to, if you want to add parsers and other tools, that we have some sample code that might be useful. There's this GCN Kafka package which you can install. It's a wrapper for Confluent Kafka. So when you go through that whole quick start guide, it gives you a client ID and client secret. You fill those in, and that essentially links your account to the GCN system. So in all of the settings and permissions that you have. And then you can later go through though and actually edit what message types, what topics you want to follow as you wish. You don't necessarily have to go through the whole steps again. So that's my quick tutorial of how to start streaming notices via Kafka. But if you go through the quick start guide, it walks you through all of the steps. It's really quite simple. So new GCN circulars. So this was a big push that we did because we knew with O4 coming, we wanted reliability of the GCN circular system and to add new features, and self-service being a huge one. Even in the few months leading up to O4, as me and my postdoc were fielding all of the requests for people to sign up for circulars, it was important to get this so that people can do it themselves and aren't waiting on us. So it's self-service. You make an account, you sign in, do whatever you want. We think it's more inclusive because it's easy to join the GCN circulars and get permissions to submit. It's much faster than the old system. It used to be that the GCN circulars were distributed basically in order in a file, and that was largely in the order in which you signed up. So early career people were often towards the bottom, and it could be 20 minutes, an hour even to lay it. I mean, we're talking about, this was written in the 90s and it was revolutionary, but the internet has changed. So now it's all fast and parallel within seconds. Everybody gets the GCN circulars, and I haven't heard anyone complain about that in a while. It's robust, it's highly available on a distributed cloud system. And we hope that this is sustainable for the long term, and we have funding commitment from NASA to keep operating for many years. The web archive moved, I already mentioned that. The emails come from a different address, and we migrated all users. So if you didn't change anything, if you received GCN circulars before April this year and continue to do so, the only real obvious change would be the address it came from. And the submission address has changed if you want to submit. We did maintain the old one, which just forwards, we have a forwarding script, or the circulars at gcn@nasa.gov. And we have this new web form. So if you want to receive GCN circulars, a very quick tutorial, you sign in, sign up. It's the same account as for notices. You log in with any one of these systems. And this is, where I mentioned, if you're a legacy GCN circular user, just the first time, click sign up. And then once you're logged in the upper right, it'll have your email address. You can click email notifications, and then you can toggle on and off if you want to receive circulars. And then that's also where you can sign up to receive notices via email. And we transferred all of subscription settings from any old users to the new system. Okay, submitting GCN circulars. This is what the archive looks like, although we've actually added some new features, I think even since the screenshot. Oh, okay, I will keep hurrying through. So you can click new, and you can have create a new circular, you sign in, a peer endorsement. You only need to do this once as the first time you're submitting a circular. Anyone who has submission privileges can be a peer endorser, and you can just search for their email address, a colleague. Anyone who they would have had to make an account though on the new system. If they're only a legacy user who has never signed into the new system, they won't be in there. But if anybody has trouble finding someone to endorse them, you can just write to us, to me personally, or to someone on the GCN contact form, and we'll endorse you, as long as you have a reasonable affiliation. This is just how the peer endorsement system works. Okay, I'm going to fly through these because I have more interesting things to talk about what's coming. As an endorser, it's a very simple process. You get on an email, you click on a link, you log in, you accept. More peer endorsements. You can edit your profile, so you can change your name and affiliation. Right now, you can't change your email address. We're working on that. We know people change institutions all the time. Right now, you just need to make a new account, which isn't ideal, but we are working on that. To post a circular, there's a simple web form where you have subject and body, and we've been adding more features to this, and we plan on adding a custom markdown capability so that you can embed more machine readable data. Okay, what's next for GCN? This is the more interesting stuff. We've had a popular request to receive circulars over Kafka. We're working on enabling that. Right now, Kafka records are stored as JSON files. It's just a matter of sort of setting up the machinery. We've been working with the SAO NASA ADS system, which for years has ingested GCN circulars, but it involved a lot of manual curation to add in all the metadata. They now are doing that faster and with less humans in the loop, so that's more on a weekly time scale. And we actually, from our circulars archive, will link back to ADS if that's already in there. And we're working on, we've been working with them to try to figure out how to do that even faster, to mint DOIs in real time. It turns out that gets a bit tricky because GCN circular submitters and the first author are not often the same person, which is something as a community we did to ourselves. So that's going to take some work and some development in order to have actually have authors that we can submit for the DOIs. We're adding a lot of capabilities to the search, including browsing circulars by event and source class, which the old system did, and I know a lot of people have wanted back. We've also done an interesting project, which I'm happy to talk to people if they're interested more later, using natural language models to parse GCN circulars and extract machine readable information. We had a summer student who made some really nice progress on that. It's not implemented in the website yet, but we're working on that. And with this custom markdown, we want to embed tables, coordinates, images, and that kind of things for more machine readability. Other enhancements that are coming, and actually some of these are already in place. We announced just recently that we have new Kafka only, natively over the new system, notices for the SwiftBat Guano system and also for IceCube LVK follow-up alerts. And there are a bunch of other teams who are working on modernizing and making new versions of their notices in JSON format to distribute. We've been developing this thing we call the unified schema. The idea is the old GCN notices, Scott had a philosophy which was give me whatever you have and I'll take it. And then he did a lot of data conversions between different formats to VO events to and back and forth depending on what people submitted. We're trying to unify this just to have just the JSON format and then some text version of that. And so we've been generating JSON schema that we is the building blocks for other notice types to develop. We did develop a system called the GCN viewer, which was separate from this whole system. It's kind of an interim project, which has a database of notices and circulars, and we want to incorporate that into our new system and interoperability with other systems like SIMA. We've added a lot of documentation for new notice producers. So if you're interested in generating new notices from an existing mission that's already in GCN or a new one, we have a step-by-step guide on how to do this, trying to lower the barrier for creating new GCN notices. I'm out of time. Unified schema, we have a schema browser, and it's also all on GitHub. If you want to, the idea being that there's a core set of schema you can build your notices out of, and then customize as needed. And that's everything. Okay, through the end of that. Thank you.